entertainment industry is in complete shock. Yandy Smith, the beloved reality TV star, is fighting for her life in the intensive care unit, leaving doctors completely baffled. As medical professionals race against time to uncover the truth, Yandy Harris remains by her side, his heart shattered. Fans are devastated. The hospital is on edge, and social media is in absolute chaos. What went wrong? Could there be something even darker happening behind the scenes? Or is this just a sudden medical nightmare? Insiders reveal chilling details that were never meant for the public eye. In the middle of this nightmare, Yandy, helpless and desperate for answers, watches as doctors struggle to stabilize Yandy. But behind the hospital doors, a shocking revelation is about to change everything. Stay with us as we uncover this heartbreaking turn of events. Will Yandy pull through? Or has everything been irreversibly changed forever? Keep watching, because what we've discovered will leave you speechless. The intensive care unit was thick with tension. The sterile air felt cold and suffocating, filled only with the steady beep, beep, beep of the cardiac monitor. Yandy Smith lay still, her face pale as a ghost, her lips dry and colorless. The room hummed with whispered conversations, clicking IV drips, and the mechanical whirring of hospital machines. At the doorway, Yandy Harris stood frozen in disbelief. His breath came in shaky gasps, his hands trembling at his sides. This isn't real. This isn't possible. Just hours ago, Yandy was full of life, laughing, working, talking about the kids. Now she was trapped in a battle for survival. With unsteady steps, Yandy moved forward, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Under the stark hospital sheets, Yandy's fragile body looked almost lifeless. An oxygen mask covered her face, and wires snaked around her, keeping her tethered to the machines, keeping her alive. This wasn't the woman he kissed goodbye this morning. Tell me what's wrong with her, doctor. His voice was raw, almost unrecognizable. The chief physician, a man in his late 50s, his face lined with exhaustion, exhaled sharply. We're still running tests, Mr. Harris. Her vitals are unstable, but we don't yet know the cause. A wave of nausea hit Yandy. You don't know. His voice shook with rage, his fists clenching. You're a doctor. You should know. You're telling me you have no answers while my wife is dying? The doctor's expression remained steady. We've ruled out a heart attack and a stroke, but something is attacking her body. We're waiting for lab results. Yandy's head spun. How could this happen? This morning, Yandy was fine, taking calls, laughing, planning her day. And now, she was slipping away. His gaze locked onto Yandy, his love, his partner, the mother of his children. And she was barely holding on. Please, baby, wake up. His fingers wrapped around her ice-cold, motionless hand, squeezing gently. No response. His chest ached, his throat tightened. Then, the door slammed open. His mother, Judy Harris, rushed in, her face etched with terror. The moment her eyes landed on Yandy, her hands flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp of horror. She took a tentative step forward, her voice quivering. Oh no, Jesus, no, no, no. Yandy turned to her, his eyes pleading, his face contorted in pain. Ma, she just passed out. The doctors don't know what's wrong. Judy's hands clutched his tightly, her grip ice cold. What do you even mean they don't know? She cried, her voice shaking with emotion. Yandy, she was fine this morning. How does someone just kill LLEPS and end up in the ICU? Yandy's jaw clenched so tightly it ached. I don't know, Ma. But if something happens to her, his voice broke before he could finish the sentence. The doctor cleared his throat. We're doing everything we can, but right now we need to keep her stable. Her oxygen levels are dangerously low, and she's not responding. Judy's face twisted in fear as she shook her head violently. No, this isn't happening. This can't be happening. Yandy barely heard her. His mind was locked onto one thing, Yandy, her body rising and falling with the machine's steady rhythm. Then, beep, 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 a machine alarm blared. Mendy's heart stopped. What was that? The doctor's face darkened. Her oxygen levels just plummeted. The room erupted into chaos. Nurses rushed to the bed, adjusting IVs, shouting orders. A nurse turned to the doctor, panic in her voice. Her breathing is erratic. She's crashing. He lunged at Yandy, but a nurse restrained him. Sir, you need to step out. I'm not leaving her, he roared, thrashing against their grip. A second alarm went off. The doctor's tone turned sharp. She's going into respiratory distress. We need to intubate now. Mendy's lost it. No, what does that mean? What does that mean? Judy clutched her chest, her cries barely coherent. Oh my God, this can't be real. The doctor's urgent voice cut through the chaos. We have to put her on a ventilator. Now! Before he could fight back, a nurse grabbed Mendy's by the shoulders and shoved him away. The door slammed in his face. Then, silence. His breaths came sharp and fast. His fists clenched at his sides, knuckles turning white. Judy's voice, barely a whisper, trembled as she clung to his arm. Baby, what if she doesn't wake up? Mendy's couldn't answer. He had never felt this before. Helpless. Fingers shaking, he clasped his hands together, standing frozen outside the ICU. The steady beep, beep, beep of the monitors was the only sound beyond those doors, where Yandy lay still, connected to more machines than he could count. Doctors and nurses moved in and out, their faces tense. Their whispers sent a chill down his spine. Every second stretched into eternity. Across the room, Judy Harris, the matriarch who had always held everything together, sat wringing her hands, lips moving in silent prayer. But even she looked shattered. She reached for his arm again, voice soft but firm. Baby, you need to sit down. Mendy's jaw locked as he shook his head. I can't. The moment Judy saw Yandy on that hospital bed, her hands flew to her lips. Oh no, Jesus, no. Mendy's turned to her, pain twisting his features. Ma, she just passed out. The doctors don't know what's wrong. Judy's fingers tightened around his hands. What do you mean they don't know? Her voice spiked with desperation. Mendy's, she was fine this morning. How does someone just collapse and end up in intensive care? His jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I don't know, Ma, but if something happens to her. His voice broke before he could finish. The doctor cleared his throat. We're doing everything we can. But right now, we need to keep her stable. Her oxygen levels are dangerously low, and she's not responding. Judy shook her head violently. No, this isn't happening. This can't be happening. Mendy's barely heard her. His entire focus was locked on Yandy, watching the rhythmic mechanical rise and fall of her chest. Then, beep, 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 the monitor screamed. Mendy's jolted upright. What was that? The doctor's face darkened. Her oxygen levels just plummeted. The room erupted into chaos. Nurses scrambled, adjusting IVs, checking vitals, yelling commands. One looked up. Her breathing is erratic. She's crashing. The blood in Mendy's ran cold. No. Who's something? Fix it. He lunged toward Yandy, but the nurse held him back. Sir, you need to step out. I'm not leaving her. His voice cracked with raw agony. Another alarm blared. The doctor snapped, she's going into respiratory failure. We need to intubate now. Mendy's fought against their grip. No, what does that mean? What does that mean? Judy sobbed, clutching her chest. Oh my God, this isn't real. The doctor's voice boomed over the panic. We have to put her on a ventilator. Now, Mendy's struggled, but the nurse yanked him back. The door slammed in his face. Then, silence. He breathed sharply and quickly. At his sides, his hands clenched into fists. Judy's voice was no more than a whisper as she held his arm. Baby, what if she doesn't wake up? Mendy's was unable to respond because he had never in his life He was absolutely helpless. His hands were clutched together, fingers shaking as he stood outside the intensive care unit. All he could hear was the soft, steady beep of the monitors on the other side of the door, while the frigid fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. It contained Yandy, still connected to more devices than he could keep track of. Nurses and doctors came and went, their faces anxious. His spine tingled at the sound of their whispered voices. It seemed like every second went on forever. Judy Harris, the unflappable matriarch, sat across the room, folding her hands and muttering silent prayers. However, she appeared broken as well. Gently, she reached for his arm once again. "Baby, you need to sit down." Mendice's jaw was clenched as he simply shook his head. "I can't." Mendice's was going crazy. Yandy was fine just a few hours ago. They were laughing, talking, and making plans for the future. Nobody had any damn answers, and she was now battling for her life. Abruptly, the ICU doors flew open. Dr. Whittaker emerged with a solemn expression. The heart of Mendice's almost stopped. He grabbed the doctor's arm as he moved forward. "Tell me something, anything. Will she be okay?" Dr. Whittaker let out a breath. "She's critical but stable." With a frustrated tone, Mendice's asked, "What the hell does that mean?" Dr. Whittaker's posture betrayed his weariness as he rubbed the back of his neck. "It means she's alive, but she isn't breathing on her own. We still don't know what caused this, but the ventilator is keeping her stable." Mendice's felt as though the ground had disappeared. Judy choked back a cry. "Lord, please have mercy." Beneath his anguish was anger. "You're telling me you don't know why she suddenly collapsed?" Dr. Whittaker was unsure. "We're running tests. We suspect exposure to toxins." Mendice's pulse pounded as he froze. "Exposure to toxins? You mean poison?" The physician nodded solemnly. "We can't confirm yet, but her symptoms are alarming. A sudden drop in oxygen levels and respiratory failure don't add up. We need to determine if someone gave her something." Mendice's felt a chilling foreboding descend. Judy covered her mouth and shuddered. Who would do such a thing? He gritted his teeth. He had some thoughts. People who wanted Yandy gone were her adversaries. Was there a strange medical emergency here, or had she been set up by someone? His hands clenched. "Run the damn tests. I need to know who did this." The ICU was filled with alarms before Dr. Whittaker could react. "She's crashing," exclaimed the nurse. Mendice's experienced a tearing sensation in his soul. "No!" He pushed past the physician, but two security officers caught him and restrained him. "You can't be in there, sir. Get off me. That's my wife." However, it was too late. They slammed the doors. He could only see mayhem through the glass, with machines blaring, nurses scurrying, and physicians yelling commands. One of the screens went blank. The legs of Mendice's trembled. "No, no, no. Fight. YNBY." Judy sobbed as she fell next to him. "Please, Lord, don't take my baby away." "Doctor." Whittaker's voice, loud and urgent, echoed from inside. "She needs to be intubated immediately. Move, now." Before Mendice's could object, a nurse took him by the shoulders and gave him a gentle push back. In his face, the doors closed. Then there was silence. Mendice stood motionless, breathless, heart pounding. Judy took hold of his arm. "Oh no! What if she doesn't make it?" He was unable to respond. He felt completely helpless for the first time in his life. Mendice clenched his hands together like a guy pleading for a miracle under the harsh, buzzing fluorescent lights. Not all he was doing was praying. He was begging. "Please, God, don't take her away from me." Yandy lay still behind those sterile white doors, connected to the equipment that kept her alive. The faint beeping of monitors was the only reassurance that she was still there, barely. Mendice was chilled by the strained whispers of the doctors as they hurried in and out. Every second felt like an eternity. Judy Harris, his mother, sat in the waiting area, hands clasped, lips moving in silent prayer. The powerful matriarch of their family looked shattered. She reached out, touching his arm gently. "Baby, you need to sit down." Mendices shook his head, his jaw clenched. I can't. I won't. I need answers. His mind was racing. Just hours ago, Yandy had been fine, smiling, planning for the future. Now she was fighting for her life, and no one could tell him why. The ICU doors swung open suddenly. Dr. Whittaker, the chief physician, emerged, his expression grave. Mendices' heart nearly stopped. He rushed forward, grabbing the doctor's arm. Tell me something. Anything. Will she be okay? Dr. Whittaker exhaled, his exhaustion evident. She's critical but stable. Mendices hesitated. What does that even mean? The doctor rubbed the back of his neck. It means she's alive, but she's not breathing on her own. We don't know what caused this yet, but the ventilator is keeping her stable. The ground beneath Mendices felt like it had disappeared. Judy stifled a sob. Lord, have mercy. Frustration bubbled beneath his grief. You're telling me you have no idea why she suddenly collapsed? Dr. Whittaker hesitated. We're running tests. We believe it may have been exposure to toxins. Mendices froze. His mind snapped to attention. Toxins? You mean poison? Dr. Whittaker gave a grave nod. We can't confirm anything yet, but her symptoms are concerning. A sudden drop in oxygen levels and rapid respiratory failure don't add up. We need to determine if she was exposed to something harmful. A chill ran through Mendices' veins. Judy trembled, covering her mouth. Who would do something like that? She whispered. Mendices' hands clenched into fists. He had his suspicions. Yandy had enemies, people who wanted her gone. Was this a freak medical crisis? Or had someone hurt her? His jaw tightened. Run those tests. I need to know the truth. Dr. Whittaker nodded, but before he could respond, the ICU alarms blared. She's crashing, a nurse shouted. Mendices felt his soul rip apart. No! He lunged toward the doors, shoving against the doctor. 2 security guards restrained him. You can't go in there, sir. Let me through. That's my wife. But it was too late. The door slammed in his face. Through the glass, he saw chaos. Nurses rushed around Yandy's bed. Doctors barked commands. Machines beeped wildly. One of the monitors flatlined. His knees buckled. No. Fight. Y-N-D-Y. Judy collapsed beside him, sobbing. Please, Lord, don't take my baby away. Inside, Dr. Whittaker grabbed the defibrillator paddles. Clear. Yandy's body jolted. Nothing. Mendices' heart stopped. Clear. Another shock. No response. He pressed his palms against the glass, tears streaming down his face. Don't do this, baby. Please don't leave me. One more shock. Then a single beep. Another. Then another. Her heart was beating again. Mendices collapsed into a chair, his entire body trembling. Judy buried her face in her hands, weeping. Dr. Whittaker rushed out, sweat glistening on his forehead. Mendices' breath was ragged as he wiped his face. She's back. His voice was raw. But she's still in danger. He took a shaky breath, eyes locking onto the doctor. I need to see her. After a brief hesitation, the doctor nodded. Just for a second. Mendices wasted no time. The rhythmic hum of the ventilator filled the stillness of the hospital room as he stepped inside. Yandy lay there, small and fragile, her skin pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. He reached for her hand, squeezing it lightly, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm right here, baby. I was terrified, but you're a fighter. You never give up. His throat tightened. He leaned closer, his lips just inches from her ear. Who did this to you? Give me a sign, please. Nothing. No movement. No response. Just the steady, mocking beep of the heart monitor. His jaw clenched as he swallowed hard. I swear, Yandy, whoever did this will regret the day they were born. Then, a twitch. Mendices froze. His breath hitched. Her fingers moved. His heart pounded as her eyelids fluttered. Yandy? He whispered, hope surging through his veins. But her gaze wasn't on him. She wasn't even acknowledging his presence. Her eyes drifted past him toward the doorway. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he turned. Standing there, her silhouette sharp against the dim corridor lights, was Samantha Wallace. His world tilted, his hands balled into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. For a second, he thought exhaustion was playing tricks on him. Maybe he was hallucinating. Maybe this was some cruel nightmare. But no, she was real, and she was smirking. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice a raw mix of disbelief and fury. Samantha stepped forward, her heels clicking against the tile with calculated precision. She glanced at Yandy, motionless, weak, then back at Mendices with an infuriatingly slow smirk. "I heard what happened," she said casually. "Came to check if she made it." Something inside Mendices snapped, the arrogance in her voice, the indifference in her eyes. It made his stomach turn. What if she did? His voice was dangerously low. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Samantha let out a dry laugh. "Relax, Mendices. I didn't do anything." She tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Of course. I warned her." His body stiffened. His fists trembled at his sides. "Warned her about what?" he commanded. She took another step forward, her gaze flickering to Yandy's frail body. "Told her," she murmured, "that being with you would be her downfall." It wasn't just words. It was a message, a confession without saying the actual words, and he felt it deep in his gut. His voice shook with barely contained rage. "You think this is funny? Yandy is fighting for her life, and you're standing here acting like you knew this would happen." Samantha's lips curled into something sinister. "That's the thing, Mendices. I didn't just know." She paused, letting the weight of her next words sink in. "I made sure." A heavy silence fell over the room, thick and suffocating. Mendices lunged. If the nurse hadn't walked in at that exact second, he would have lost it completely. He forced himself to stop, his body burning, his hands shaking with violent rage. "Not now. Not yet." His voice was ice cold. "You did this." Samantha didn't flinch, didn't even blink. "I never touched her," she said smoothly. His jaw tightened to the point of pain. "But you played with fire," he growled. "And I warned you what would happen." She simply smiled, turning on her heel like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in his life. With one last glance at Yandy, she strode out of the room, leaving only the echo of her footsteps behind. Mendices turned sharply to the doctor, his entire body coiled with tension. "Run every test you can. Now, I need to know what's in her system." The doctor nodded and rushed out. A trembling hand gripped his arm. "Judy." His mother. "Son." Her voice shook. What did she mean? Who would do something like this? Mendices had no answer, but he was about to get one. Minutes later, the toxicology report confirmed his worst nightmare. They had poisoned Yandy. Mendices' heart pounded as he replayed the evening in his mind. They had ordered food, trusted its source, and before that lunch ever reached Yandy, it had been directly accessible to only one person. His blood ran cold. A name surfaced in his mind, a name he never thought he would have to suspect. Kimbella. The toxicology report confirmed the presence of a rare, slow-acting poison in Yandy's system. It was designed to gradually weaken her, shutting down her organs if left untreated. The implications were horrifying, and Mendices wasted no time. He grabbed his phone and dialed. "We need to talk." "Now." Kimbella hesitated. "What's wrong, Mendices? You sound—" "I know, Kimbella." His voice was devoid of emotion. "I know everything." Silence. A beat later. "Where are you?" 30 minutes later, they stood face to face. Mendices slammed the toxicology report onto the table, his gaze locked onto Kimbella's reaction. "Poison," he said, his voice lethal. While she ate, Kimbella's face drained of color. "Mendices, I don't lie to me." His voice sliced through the air. Kimbella stepped back, her voice trembling. "I swear, I had nothing to do with that." Mendices' eyes darkened. "Then explain why your name was on the food order." She looked away. Hi, I was just helping. Yandy was busy, so I thought, don't to play with me, K-A-B-L-L-A. Tears welled in her eyes. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted her to pay. Mendy felt sick. She had tried to kill Yandy. But why? Jealousy? Revenge? His fists clenched as he demanded. For what? Kimbella's voice cracked. She was supposed to be my best friend, but she was the first to turn on me. Mendy shook his head, his chest heaving. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies. I never thought it would go this far. All I wanted was for her to suffer. Mendy clenched his jaw. Well, now you were the one who's going to suffer. She tried to run, but she didn't get far. The police were already waiting outside. As she reached the exit, 2 officers stopped her. Mendy watched emotionless as they cuffed her. I'm sorry, she sobbed, turning to him. His face remained impassive. She wasn't sorry. She was just caught. When Mendy returned to the hospital, Yandy's eyes fluttered open. She looked weak, fragile, but alive. Mendy, her voice was barely above a whisper. He took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. He sat beside her, whispering, It's over, sweetheart. Kimbella is gone. Tears welled in Yandy's eyes, but why? Mendy sighed, running a hand over her knuckles. She was never your friend. Yandy squeezed his hand. Thank you for saving me. Mendy nodded, his jaw tense. This isn't over yet. Because deep down, he knew the truth. And now that the first secret had unraveled, the real question remained. Was Kimbella acting alone? Or was someone else pulling the strings? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more jaw-dropping drama, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next shocking twist. Because trust me, this is just the beginning.